Hello YouTube, how's it going? Time for another instant analysis, this time on the new Fest cards that got announced yesterday. Um we were actually watching a live in the Discord while this news came out. Second Fest Ayumu and Second Fest Mari. We're gonna start with Mari first. So Mari, pure attribute, voltage type. At max limit break, base appeal 13,799, base stamina 7,740. It's a little bit high. Technique 12,117. For those of you wondering, this stat line gives Mari a 36.35% crit rate at max limit break. Okay. Also, oh god, Mari's driving. Yeah, bye. Anyway, her tap skill. Thankfully, 33% chance to activate. Increase appeal by 7.6% for the next 5 notes. Affects same strategy cards. Now, this is 100% just a better first FES2. Like, as far as the tap skill goes, if you think back to first FES2 had an appeal buff tap active, but it was only for second years. So having this card be a 7.6% next 5 notes for everybody in the strategy allows you a lot more flexibility, when it comes to team building and stuff like that. It instead of being stuck with the same year, right, and having to go like Chica, first Fest Chica's first Festio and like Night Sky Rico or Tanabata Rico, for your full second year voltage strat, right? At least with Mari, now you can start to, sub in some different cards, right? You can sub in a second Fest Nico. You can sub in a Dreamy Kids Landrina. And you can have your strategies be a little bit, the cards in your main strategy a little all over the place if you're, going full kind of brute force. Though this tap active doesn't really make a ton of sense for advanced beat maps. It's a lot better for advanced plus beat maps. Because it's harder to hit cap on advanced plus beat maps than advanced beat maps. Okay. Then we get to the best part of this card, which is her passive. This passive is fantastic. Base appeal buff 7%, base technique buff 3.5%, affects same strategy cards. This passive is amazing. For Fest cards, this is like the passive. Right? Because both of these things, appeal and technique, remember, affect your SP gauge. So by having a card with this type of passive, you get a significant boost towards your center 3 gauge and your tap values, having the base appeal increase. The live show active is a little bit funky, and we'll go over this in a little bit when we get to Ayumu. Mari's live show active has a 50% chance to activate upon appeal chance completion and increases appeal by 8.6% for the next 5 notes for cards in her strategy. So what does this mean? Because it's upon appeal chance completion, right? This card works best when you have a lot of appeal chances. But the appeal buff is only for 5 notes. So all in all, this LSA doesn't really affect much. when it, especially when it comes to some of the longer songs. Um, to like this LSA, it doesn't significantly downgrade the card. It just makes like this is probably the most forgettable part of the card. If you are looking to get this Mari, the main like pros for the card are going to be her tap active, and then number one pro about this card is her passive. Um, this kind of passive would make for just kind of like if you don't have like any like quote unquote meta guest cards and you're looking to like fill in another card in your guest slot, this is actually a pretty good card to have because the passive is just fantastic. Okay. And the reason why I'm kind of downplaying this card a little bit, it's like it's not necessarily a meta card. It's like a 5 out of 10 meta card, like maybe spot situational use, but nothing more. Non-meta players, I mean, it's a very high appeal pure attribute card, so it's still going to be good for you. And again, it's a lot of same strategy stuff, so you can, mix and match and stuff and not necessarily have to worry about years or attributes or schools or anything like that. So for non-meta players, it's like a 8. That's like a 7.5. The reason why I'm downplaying this card a little bit is because the other card on the banner, the face of the banner, UR-wise, is the second FES Ayumu. Or we want to call it Light of Blessings Ayumu. Who, for scoring purposes, has a much better stat line. At max limit break, 14,472 base appeal, 5721 base stamina, 13,464 base technique. And for anybody wondering, that equates out to a 40.39% crit rate. Okay. Then we get the lovely, probably the best tap skill to get on voltage type cards, especially really, really high appeal voltage type cards, and that's the voltage boost tap active. Voltage boost tap active, 33% chance at max skill level, gain 42% of her own appeal as voltage. And much like Mari, has the same passive. So both of the URs on this particular banner share the same passive. Again, very, very great. Now, here's where Ayumu kind of makes Mari a little bit of an afterthought. Her live show active gain 15% of your own appeal, of her own appeal as voltage. And it has a 50% chance to activate on her taps. Okay? So, numerically, what does this mean? Okay? So, if we take a calculator, right? And so, let's say, let's try and map out Ayumu's taps, and let's say, her tap skill goes, sticks to its average and happens once every 3 times. Okay? So first tap, we get nothing. Second tap, we get her live show active, right? Second tap, we end up getting her live show active. So, we get 1.15%, so 115% of her appeal, right? Third tap, we get the tap active, so we get 1.42. Fourth tap, we get this again, so 1.15. Fifth tap, we don't get either. And the sixth tap, we get both the live show active and the tap active. So we get a total of 1.15 0.57 times her appeal. That equates out to 7.29% of her appeal. Now, we did this over 6 taps, right? So if we take this 729% of her appeal, and we divide that by the 6 taps that it took us to get here, on average, Ayumu's tap value, assuming normal or average RNG, is going to be 1.215 or 121.5% of her appeal is what she'll get every single tap. Now, for any of you that have, any of you Ayumu Oshis that just have Ayumu at a very, very high bond level, say 200 plus, this card is going to be amazing. This card is going to be such a just beat down style card because of this tap active. It can actually give you some great viability. Like, let's say if you wanted to do some voltage competing on a pure attribute song and you're using Ayumu with like, say, 200 level, 200 bond level, and you're at bond board, the level 100 bond board. God, this card would go absolutely bonkers. There aren't a ton of Ayumu Oshis, especially on the global server, but those of them, that are most likely going to be pulling for this card, like Tin Boy in the chat, this card is just going to be, just an absolute beater of a card. It's going to be so good, especially if you combine this type of card with, even Mari, getting, multiple cards that have, same strategy appeal buffs, lots of backline appeal buffs. Because with this particular card, right, the higher her appeal goes, even if you're on an advanced beat map and you're tap capping at 60,000 or 61,000, the higher your appeal goes, right, the higher your appeal goes, even though you may only be tapping for 60,000 or 61,000, the amount of voltage that this card can get from her tap active and her live show active will continue to go up. So putting this card with a bunch of backliners isn't all that bad. But yeah, it's a very, very good card. It's a very, very good card. How meta is it? That's a thing. We are getting a lot of Advanced Plus songs for voltage rankings and stuff like that. So this card gains a little bit more value. But especially for things like SBL, priority on this card is pretty low. Because SBL is still ruled by SP gauge fillers and stuff. So realistically, this is like an 8.5 card. It's a very good card in the situations that it is used, but it's not going to get used all the time. So that's kind of where I land on the card. If you have your own opinions on the card, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Am I gonna pull for either Ayumu or Mari? Probably not. I will still do my daily pulls, and I'll certainly take them. But am I going after these cards really, really hard? Not really. All right, YouTube. Until next time. I actually have a special video that I'm going to be working on over the course of this week. That actually isn't even my video. It's a video that I'm collaborating with Pneumatic for. And that's all I'll say about that. Until next time, YouTube, take it easy. We'll see you next time. Bye.